Hello, welcome back to the Rad Stream. What I want to do today is take a look at the Atom Real Estate API. Uh, I think a lot of the time I'm evaluating which development approach to take, or I should say like that. It's not a lot of the time, but that's like probably the most I would say stressful part of the whole process to me is like which development direction do you go in when somebody brings some question to you or has a something that they want to build, because there's always a million different ways to go. And to me, that's like the part where it's like once I have a plan in place, I'm like, all right, I know how to get this done. I just need to like work through all the bugs and problems and stuff. That isn't as stressful as like, well, I don't know which direction to go in here. And that's where I'm at with this current use case where we've been building essentially our own repository of real estate data in our own database, which is a ton of data to manage. We've jumped through a few different solutions, Xano, SQL database we considered at one point, but we definitely outgrew the native bubble database. I don't want to say outgrew because that's not really the right word. It's that we had to run CRUD operations on a million plus records, and it was just taking too long. Xano handled that a little bit more efficiently than Bubble did. So that's why we moved to Xano. But now what we're finding is that there's also an API here that has the same data. So do we even need to be saving this data at all? Can we just integrate with a third party and get the same, information and run the same operations on them? So that's kind of what I'm evaluating today. I'm just going to take a look at this API and see if it's a development direction that I really want to consider and then make a recommendation on that. But I figured I'd just live stream the process of how I evaluate this kind of stuff and, like just see if it's helpful to anybody. You may be working on your own integrations and, probably a lot of you are evaluating the same types of stuff. Obviously, it's broader than just real estate stuff, but, this is the use case that I have. So, Adam, this is the provider here. And I've already looked through their documentation a little bit. I think the endpoint that was most interesting to me was the comparable sales. So you can see that they have their Swagger documentation set up here. And when you click one of these, it gives you an expanded view of like which parameters you can call or pass through to the API, and then you can try it out to see like, well, what kind of response you're going to get, what information is going to come back from that API call. Now, this is pretty standard working with REST APIs. I'm sure if you're watching this and you've worked with REST APIs before, this is probably nothing too new. But if you're seeing it for the first time, I know it does seem a little bit overwhelming, but once you've done this a few times, like maybe connected to 2 or 3 APIs, you kind of will get the hang of it pretty quickly. It's a lot of technical jargon, but again, it's like it's a lot of the same after you've done this once or twice. So the one that kind of solves, I don't even want to say fully solves my use case, but kind of solves my problem here is the not sales history, but the sales comparable, right? We want to get comparable sales from we'll call it a subject property, right? You have a property in mind, and we want to get what are the comparable sales to this property in terms of the year it was built, the square footage of the house, and just various things that you would want to know might be interesting to a real estate investor or to even someone just selling their house. I feel like there's a lot of different applications to this info. So sales comparable, this is the endpoint that I've been playing around with. And you can see as soon as I expand this, returns basic property information and sales comparable for the subject property based on specified ranges, right? So the subject property, again, is like if I put my own address in, and then my own address, and then the comparable properties are the ones that will come back in the API call based on specified ranges, which are what ranges for the square footage, the radius, the number of miles, how far do I want to look. So there are quite a few parameters here that we can use to get a list of comparable properties of the one that we're interested in. So let's do that. Let's go. Let's see what this looks like. I'm going to just hit try it now. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of where this info is. Just hit try it out. And this is actually pretty cool to see. Like, this is pretty good documentation that you can just like click that, and I didn't have to put anything in. Like, I didn't put in an API key or anything, and it just automatically gives me what I think is a real response. It's not even sandbox info, it doesn't seem to me. So I'm going to put an old property in the parameters here. Let's use 37 University Drive, Lake Ronkonkoma. This is Suffolk County, so it does require I think these are in red because they're required values, whereas these are optional. It's gonna be New York. I don't know what the zip code is for Lake Ronkonkoma zip code. Pretty sure it was this 11779. 11779. Okay, I'm gonna just leave these other inputs as the default here. Scroll back to the bottom, and let's see what kind of response we get. Okay, so this is 37 University Drive, Ronkonkoma, New York. Cool. And yeah, it does look like this information looks correct to me. This is an old property. And what is, so the comparable property, this is what I'm interested in here, is like, what are the comparable properties in the radius that I set, right? So 6 Powell Ave is another comparable property in terms of square footage and the price of the home and all that. And that did seem to come back with this call here. Now, it came back in a weird way where, I don't know, we'll see if this is a problem, but all I really need to do now, as far as Bubble goes, is copy this request URL, and I probably will have to authenticate also. So let's see how we can actually get this into Bubble. I'm going to just copy this, Control C, and I'm in Bubble now. This is one of my test applications. Again, I'm just evaluating whether or not to even go down this rabbit hole with this API as opposed to what we've been doing so far, building our own repository of information. If this does work, I mean, it probably would be easier to do it this way. It'll probably save a lot of time as opposed to having to deal with and manage all of that data. So, you know, I'm hopeful that this is a good way to go. Okay, so you can see I do need an API key here. I'm just kind of extracting it from the C URL here, right? So it says part of the header is going to be the API key. So I'm going to just copy this. See, Bubble is kind of defaulted when I put the authentication method as private key and header. It defaulted the key name to authorization, which I'm going to change to API key because that's what I'm gathering from what I'm seeing here. And then I'm going to take this. This seems to be like the probably sandbox or default API key that they just give everybody because I'm not even logged in, right? I'm not logged in here. And then, so that should take care of the authentication. I might also need to set the content type to application JSON here, but we'll try it without it first. And then I'm just going to copy this whole URL, including all of the parameters, and paste that into this input here. And I think it's a get method too, right? Yes, get right here. Okay, so I'm going to just change the name of this to comparable sales, I guess I'll call it, comparable real estate sales. And we'll do it as data for now. And let's see if that does it. Is that all we need? Maybe. Yes, that is successful. So this is what a successful API call looks like in Bubble. Jesus, yes, a lot of fields. I was kind of afraid of that. There are definitely a lot of fields coming back. I don't love the way that this response is structured. I know this is going to be a pain in the ass to work with. So you've got like the response group here. This is just basic group about the basic information about the provider that's giving us this information, not necessarily the property that we searched here. But this is where the actual data starts here, right? So the subject property, I see that here. 37 University Drive, Ronkonkoma. So that information does seem to be coming in. And then when we scroll down, I'm looking for some of the comparable properties here. This seems like the first one, sequence 6 Pal. Yep, we saw that same thing in the test when we did that directly in the Atom site. It's got the previous owner, the total bedroom count. Yeah, interestingly enough, it doesn't give us the response. Well, I guess it gives us the response, so it doesn't tell us what. Yeah, it does give us the information there. I guess it's the same. Whether there's an attic or not, the square footage of the basement. I mean, like, that's pretty good info here. And then when does it start? When does the second one start? Product info, sequence 2. So this is like, I don't love the way that this is structured. Like, this is like I said, it's going to be annoying to work with this because of, like, I think the information that I need starts with this array. Where did it start? Here, right? Like, this is the property. These square brackets indicates an array, right? And that starts here. This is the first property that's coming back in this array. And that is the subject property that we said. But then there's also, I think, as part of the same array, and I don't know a good way to evaluate this. This might just be a limitation in my knowledge of how to work with JSON. But I don't know how to say, like, okay, how do I see easily, like, whether or not the comparable properties are still part of this array? I'm just almost looking for another square bracket here before that starts to see if, like, all right, am I doing the same? Am I looking at the same array of information? See, I see square bracket here, but that's closing this loan extension thing here, right? So that's not closing yet. We keep going. We see owner stuff. Again, we're still looking at the first property information here. I got the levels. That's an array. It's closing out here. Again, this is just the way that I look at this stuff. I would imagine there's an easier way to do this. That closes, right? And see, this is where the second property starts, so it's still within the same array. So I think, like, what I'm looking for in Bubble is to say, like, each item property, like the response data is proprietary information, subjects, properties, property. It's going to be a long ass expression to evaluate in the Bubble editor. I can already see that. But this is really the meat of what we're trying to get to. All right, so let's see how this is going to look. The call is initialized, so we are successfully connected. But let's see what this is actually going to look like when we start putting it into the, the app itself. All right, so what I want to do is this. What I want to do is say, you can see how I have all of these different lists. These are all of the lists that came back from that API call. So now they're all available to me, but it's up to me now to kind of figure out where the hell is the actual information that I need. Comparable sale, I'd probably start here. And then, so that's the type of content. Again, I'm working in a repeating group here. And then the data source would be getting data from an external API. Again, we set this up as data. That's why it's available here. Otherwise, it will be available. If you put it as action, it'll only be available in the workflow tab. I'm getting data from an external API. The API provider, I only have one because I just initiated that call. I don't have any other APIs that I'm working with in this app yet. And you can see, like, I can tell that these are the fields that came back, right? The name, the street address, the city. These are individual fields. So I'm not going to be able to use that as a data source, right? Because this is looking for a list of information that evaluates to a comparable sale. So that's not going to work. Now, the one that looks the most promising to me is this, because it's not evaluating to an individual field. For some reason, they use the @ symbol to denote a field. Again, I don't really know why. It just seems to be the way that Atom does it. I haven't seen that before. All right, so now I've got this response here. Okay, so I've got the Atom comparable sales response group, data, property information, and you can see this kind of evaluates. If I can just bring back when I initialize the call, let me take like a screenshot of this or something. This kind of evaluates to those different these I don't even know what you call these. Are they objects? They're not objects. I'm gonna just take a screenshot of this. You can see like it's this is the path that I'm looking for, right? The Atom comparable sales, that's like the main, I don't know, main URL, main endpoint, I guess I would call it. Response group response, data property information. So you see that's lining up. Response data property information, response ext, right? So like you can see the language is lining up here. Response data, property information, response underscore ext, that's here. Subject property, property. So you can see like what came back in the initial API call we're seeing here and trying to build this expression to get to this information here. And that's what I'm doing here. So Bubble is telling me like what this is evaluating to is not matching up to the type of content that I set. So what I'm going to do is they usually give you a recommendation of that. All right. So this repeating group's content type is a comparable sale. The data you're setting now is a type, comparable sales, response group, response data, property. Jesus effing Christ. This is so annoying to work with. I hate I don't like the structure of this response. Like I said in the beginning, I knew this was going to be annoying to work with. But it's what we got. All right, so you can see as soon as I clicked that, it cleared up the issue because now I'm evaluating to this long sausage of a response, and that matches the data source that I'm setting here. Okay, so now the problem that I'm going to have now is trying to get to each item here, current sales, street address, right? So it's this whole thing, current sales, comparable, response, group, response, blah, blah, blah. And then I want to get the street address of each property, comparable property in particular, that's coming back. Let's see if that works. All right, so I'm only getting the subject property. In other words, the first property in the list, which is not good. That's not what we want. I want that entire list of comparable properties, which is not happening. Now, I don't know in the way that I think I'm good because of the way that this response comes back. I think I'm going to have to, right? Again, I'll just take a quick look at it. It should be the property, and then all of those are values. The comparable properties are values within this property array, but for some reason it's not working that way. It's not working the way that I would expect. So I'm going to do a simplified version of this just for, so I don't spend too much time trying to figure this out yet. Eventually I'll have to solve for this, but I'm not even 100% sold that I should even go in this direction yet. So I think what I'm going to do is change this to, let's clear this expression that I put into the data source, and let's do get data from an external API, comparable sales. And I'm going to type in, I guess we have to use the same one here, but I can then add go to comparable property, ext street address. Right, so this is evaluating to a list of street addresses, which I think is probably what I need. All right, and now it's going to give me the error that this is evaluating to text, and it should no longer be the original thing that I said it was, the proprietary information property. All right, so I have to change that to text. All right, so that it will accept that, and now I'm going to have to change this. I just have current sales text. And then let's see if that gives us a list of addresses. It does. Okay. And then we have the 6 Powell Ave. We have the 23 Paula Boulevard. These are the ones that I saw in, this is the ones that we saw in the raw API response. So that we know this is the information that we want here. Now, the problem is that this is, a single repeating group for just one field. That sucks. That doesn't really, like if I was really displaying this information, I'd need it all in one repeating group. So what I have here is a second one. I think what I'll do is just maybe just copy this over. Actually, wait, I don't want to do that. Let me backspace this. What do I have in here already? Yeah, let's just rebuild this expression. Get data from an external API. We're going to use the Atom API comparable sales response. And then instead of the street address here, I'm going to use, do we have a price per, comparable? I typed that in first. I want the price per foot. Square foot amount. So each item's sale history or each item's comparable property, sales history, price per foot. I think that's the one that I want. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, we've got some price per foot here. We can probably round that down to, can I round this down to formatted as, no, I can't even do that because it's not evaluating to a number. I guess I could change that in the API call. Actually, let's do that. So I'm looking for Control F. I'm going to look for price per foot. And I don't think it was this one, but I'll change this to a number also. I'm going to change this to a number. So it evaluates to a number. And now what I can do, oh shit, what did I do? I probably broke both of them now. Really? Oh, I guess it has to evaluate. This one has to evaluate to a number. This is still text. That's okay, but this needs to evaluate to a number. And that should fix that. And then what I can do is format that so there's not so many decimals. We don't need that much. Number. I guess each item form. I don't want to format this as text. Format it as a number. And then I want a, how did it come out? Too many decimal places. We're just going to do, we're not going to do any. We don't want a decimal place. But Bubble does this weird thing where now it evaluates the text because this is formatted. So we're just going to, I guess because there's a comma and a mathematical operator wouldn't understand that. So I'm going to change this back to text and see if that works. All right, so we started with text. Now we're back at text. Okay. All right. That looks a little better. This is cleaner. I think now what I want to do is test. So at least I'm connected and I'm getting a list of properties. So that makes me feel a little bit good. Right? It tells me a little bit that we're going in the right direction. What we're going to have to do now is put in, like, set up the inputs, like for dynamic values, right? So again, I want to be putting in an address. I want to be putting in the square footage, the radius, all that stuff. So I'm going to kind of rework this URL that we created here and make these dynamic, right? Because right now it's just one API call. There's no dynamic values that are going in here. It's just one. I'm always going to get the same result for, when this page is loaded. So let's start with one of the smaller fields here, or the simpler fields, I should say. I guess the address is probably a good field to start with, but that honestly, that seems complicated. Let's start with, there's a search type, a radius min. There's a bedroom range. Bedroom range is equal to 2. Maybe we can increase the miles. Maybe that's kind of a, let's see what the miles one's parameter does. Miles. looking for here. This is what I'm looking for. So default 5. I suppose this means within 5 miles, it'll default to 5. So if I increase this, I should get more properties, right? All right, so let's make this first. Let's make this dynamic. So I gotta find my miles here, my miles text. I'm going to put square brackets around this. That means it's going to be dynamic. You see that opens up a parameter here that I can, I'm telling Bubble basically that it's dynamic now. And we'll keep the 5 and we'll uncheck private. Otherwise, that's not going to show. Reinitialize. I don't even know if I need to reinitialize that actually. I should be getting the same amount of data. Let's also do a count. Let's get a count at the top here. Let's do this. And we'll call this, hope that's not in the repeating group itself. No, it's not. Good. We're going to do repeating group. Let's call, how do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? Let's group this maybe in another group. So I got to rework this page a little bit because I'm changing things now. So let's group this in a row container. And we'll remove that style, none. And my page layout should be a column. Components test, and then let me put the text back onto the page. And this will be repeating group, texts, list of texts, count. I'm trying to count the number of properties that are in there. All right, let's center this. Let's remove the style, actually center it, and then just move it up. All right, so I should have a list on top or a number count on top. Good, that's 9. All right, let me just make this also not a fixed width. Cool. All right, so I got a 9 here. Let's put a property count. So dynamic data, paste expression, repeating group, text, list of texts, count. All right, so we've got 9. Now let's see what happens when we change that value. Let's change this to 10. We should get, in theory, we should get more values because we are expanding the radius of miles that we're looking for here. So let's see what happens when we do that. We should have more than 9 now. Still have 9. Let's do 50. Reinitialize call. Maybe that wasn't a big enough radius to. Still 9. Interesting. Let's make sure that the value in here. This is still 5. I don't know if. Does this need to be in here like that? Maybe that shouldn't be. Let's see. All right, still came back. Nope, still coming back with 9. Maybe that miles thing isn't really what I wanted. I know there was another parameter called radius, so maybe let's try that one. Radius. I totally lost my spot now. God damn it. All right. I'm looking for the property API overview. Going back here to the sales comparable. Oh, the search type here is radius. I see. Double search. I don't know. It's not clear to me what this miles field is supposed to do. What if I change it here 50? I don't even know if we're going to be able to see any difference because I don't know what happened. I got a response code 400. What does that mean? All right. I don't know why it's still giving me the same thing. Let me expand. Let me use a different parameter here. Let's do year built. Range is 10. Again, I don't know exactly what that means. Does that mean like years, 10 years back? Like, is it looking backwards? Year built range, property characteristics, year built default 10. It doesn't really tell you what this does. Let's see if this gives us a different result. Year built range. How is it a range though if it's only one value? I don't get that. Put some parameters around that. It's going to be equal 60. This has to give us a different result. If not, then there's something wrong with the way that I'm setting it up. It still looks like 9. Yeah, it's still 9. Let's get rid of this. Still getting 9. I don't know what that's about. I don't know how to do this in a way that's going to produce a different result. How do you put a range in? Default 10. All right, maybe the square feet range. It's all the same though. Let's try going lower. See if that gives us anything different. Everything is 9. Why 9? Let's go 1 mile. Still 9. Doesn't matter what I do. I always get 9. All right, let's get rid of all the parameters in here. How's that? Only the required ones. We're only going to use the required parameters. And that should be he's starting here. Well, these are parameters too, technically, right? Interesting. It's like right into the URL. All right, let's get rid of this. I'm going to delete all the way up until this. So that gives us a result. Does. Great. The same result. Okay, so let's add a parameter. Let's do this the manual way, I guess. And let's add miles. Let's add a value of 50. Okay, at least we got something different. Search description invalid parameter value used for search method miles. Acceptable values are 1 through 10. Interesting. Why? Why 1 through 10? Let's try 1. All right, that did give us a value. And the property count is 0. Okay, fine. But we can only do from 1 to 10 miles away? Two. Let's do 5. That gave us 9. I lost my price per foot. All right, and that's in the 5 miles here. Let's do a 4. Still 9. So all of these properties are within 4 miles of the sale? How is that possible? Makes me think I'm getting wrong data. There we go. All right, now we've got 7. Okay, so at least we know this is working. This parameter is working. What's limited here is that you can only do 1 through 10. 1 to 10 miles, which to me doesn't, I don't know. I feel like there should be a broader search. Maybe they're trying to limit them to come back, something to that effect. But all right, let's try now a different one. At least we know how to work. I guess it wasn't working before because of the conflicting information that was in the URL here. That's certainly possible. Okay, so let's do let's check a different field here. Let's do the same city bathroom range. Let's do the square footage. Again, I don't really know why they're choosing 600 as the default. Square feet range. Let's do 600. See what comes back. Still 7, so that didn't seem to make any difference. Let's go back up to 10 miles, so the maximum range that they allow us. Save. Ooh, we've got 11. We've got more now. Okay, so it has expanded a little bit. It's given us more. I guess. Well, what's the square footage on our subject property? I guess is the question, right? Our subject property. Let's add a text field into here, and let's do. Get data from an external API. Can I do it this way? Let's see. Square feet count. No, that's not what I want. Square. Lot square feet, probably not. Lot square feet. I don't know if that's going to work. That's not giving us anything. That's good. Oh, well, that's also because the text is the wrong color. That's giving us a list. All right. No, that's not going to work the way that I want it to. All right. Maybe what we could do, though, is make these inputs dynamic. Let's add an input here. And this will be square foot. And let's add an input here. And this will be miles away. And then we can evaluate here the API provider. I feel like we should have, I still have it set to private. So you see how those inputs weren't there before. These inputs weren't here. There's no inputs here to enter. But now that I'm going to uncheck private, they should be available now. Yeah, so now these can be dynamic where I can say, let's maybe name this input miles. I didn't. Okay, cool. Or did it automatically. Input miles value. input square foot value. All right, so now I don't have to initialize the call every single time I want to check to see if this is making a difference. Square footage. Let's do 1,000. And let's do 5 miles. Doesn't seem to be making any difference. Let's see. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be making a difference. Seems to be defaulting to. Well, let's see if we get a different. We change this to 1,000. What does that make it? Still 11. 11 on the square foot. Okay, so if we change this from, I mean, it's 0 right now, so I guess it just defaults to whatever I initialize the call with. What if I change it to 500 and then within 4 miles? Definitely, okay, it's got 5 there. And just a 5, 6. Okay, that is actually working. 600. 600, there's 11 properties. All right, so it is dynamic, fine. What else can we do here? The year built. Oh, okay. I think what happens is it's the range. You're putting in a single number here, so it's going up or down. Right? So if I put in a 10, if I put in a sales date range or sale, what did I use again? I use square footage. I think it's like 600 plus or minus the subject properties square footage. If that's what's happening, that's actually cool that it does that automatically for me. Let's see. Let's see if that holds true with the values that are actually coming in. Let's change this text. Sales history. Let's get each item's square price. I don't want the price per square foot. I want the comparable property. We've got latitude, longitude, price per foot. I can't even see because these friggin' things are so long. Bathroom count. Structure attic square foot. Structure basement square foot. I don't even know. Lot square foot with feet count. Jesus. I don't even know which one this is going to be. Distance from subject property? Huh. Forget it. I don't even want to try and figure that out. We've got our 11 within 5 miles. Still have 11. 4 miles. 3 miles. We get it. All right. And then we put this to 700. That's too small. 3, 600, 7. Okay. All right. I mean, this does work. All right. I think in summary, what I'm kind of learning from this API is it's going to be very annoying to work with. It does kind of give us the information that I want, and it does make this easier than the way that I have it set up now, where we're just importing all of that information in. It's going to be a little annoying just because of the way that this data is the JSON response is structured. That I have to set up multiple repeating groups, and yeah, and just I can't seem to access the comparable property info in a way that's coming out as a list. So those are the two things that I'm deciding on. Again, I'm not fully sold on this approach yet. I think if I can get those things to work, then I probably will go this route. But just to kind of snapshot into the way that I look at and evaluate APIs before I tend to go all in on them. All right, I will catch you all tomorrow.